3 months later, Marcus pulled into the TechFlow Industries parking lot for his monthly consulting session. What had started as a simple experiment had evolved into something much more significant than anyone had anticipated. In his first month, Marcus had helped resolve a manufacturing process bottleneck that had been reducing production efficiency by 15%. The solution involved rearranging the sequence of quality control checks, something the industrial engineers had overlooked because they were focused on improving individual stations rather than optimizing the overall flow. During his second visit, he'd identified why the new employee training program was failing. While the training materials were technically accurate, they were organized in a way that overwhelmed new hires with too much information too quickly. Marcus suggested breaking the training into smaller, more practical modules, dramatically improving retention rates and reducing the time needed to get new employees productive. Today's session was different, though. Mr. Davidson had called specifically requesting Marcus's input on a major strategic decision about expanding into new markets. The company was considering 3 different cities for their next regional office, and the traditional market analysis wasn't providing clear direction. Walking into the familiar lobby, Marcus was greeted warmly by Sarah, who had become something of a friend over the past months. "Morning, Marcus. Ready for today's challenge?" "Always," Marcus replied with a grin. "What's the situation this time?" "Market expansion decision. Mr. Davidson says the data is conflicting and they need a fresh perspective on the whole approach." In the conference room, Marcus found the familiar faces of the leadership team, along with several new people he hadn't met before. Charts and graphs covered the walls, showing demographic data, competition analysis, and economic projections for 3 potential cities. "Marcus, glad you're here," Mr. Davidson said, standing to shake hands. "We're completely deadlocked on this expansion decision. The financial projections show Cincinnati has the best ROI, the market research suggests Denver has the most growth potential, and the logistics analysis points to Atlanta for operational efficiency. We can only afford to expand to 1 city this year." Marcus studied the charts for several minutes, asking questions about the methodology behind each analysis. As he listened to the explanations, a pattern began emerging that reminded him of a delivery route optimization problem he'd solved for his own company. "Can I ask you something that might seem unrelated?" Marcus said finally. "When you deliver packages, what's more important? The shortest distance, the fastest time, or the lowest cost per delivery?" The room looked puzzled. Linda spoke up first. "Well, it depends on what you're optimizing for, right?" "Exactly," Marcus nodded. "And the answer is usually that you need to optimize for all 3 simultaneously, which means finding the route that gives you the best combination of factors, not the best single factor." Mr. Davidson leaned forward with interest. "Go on." "You're analyzing these cities as if you need to pick the one that's best in any single category. But what if you're asking the wrong question? What if instead of which city is best, you should be asking, which city gives us the best foundation for multiple expansions?" The head of strategic planning, a woman named Rebecca, frowned thoughtfully. "What do you mean exactly?" Marcus moved to the whiteboard. "Show me these 3 cities on a map." Rebecca pulled up a digital map projection. Marcus studied it for a moment, then drew some rough lines connecting the cities to TechFlow's existing locations. "Denver puts you in position to eventually expand into the entire western region," Marcus explained. "Atlanta positions you for southeastern expansion. But Cincinnati—" He paused, drawing more connecting lines. "Cincinnati puts you at the center of a network that could eventually reach Chicago, Detroit, Nashville, Louisville, Indianapolis, Columbus. It's not just about the immediate ROI. It's about creating the most flexible platform for future growth." The room was silent as everyone absorbed this perspective. Rebecca suddenly sat up straighter. "He's right. We've been thinking about this as a single expansion, when we should be thinking about it as the first step in a regional strategy. But the immediate financial returns in Cincinnati aren't as strong," pointed out the CFO. "True," Marcus acknowledged. "But if you're building a network, sometimes the most strategically valuable position isn't the most immediately profitable one. It's the one that gives you the most options for what comes next." Dave, who had been promoted to senior engineer partly due to his success working with Marcus, smiled widely. "It's like choosing your foundation before you build a house. You don't pick the foundation based on which corner looks prettiest. You pick it based on what kind of house you want to build. Mr. Davidson was already nodding enthusiastically. This completely changes how we evaluate the decision. Rebecca, can you run the numbers on a 5-year regional expansion plan using Cincinnati as the hub? I can have preliminary projections by tomorrow morning, Rebecca replied, already making notes. As the meeting continued, Marcus found himself drawn into deeper strategic discussions about logistics networks, regional market penetration, and long-term competitive positioning. The conversations were remarkably similar to problems he solved daily in his delivery work, just at a much larger scale. 2 hours later, as the meeting concluded, Mr. Davidson walked Marcus to the lobby. You know, when I first offered you that consulting arrangement, I thought we might call you in for technical problems occasionally. I never imagined you'd be helping us with fundamental business strategy. Problems are problems, Marcus replied with his characteristic modesty. The principles of good problem-solving work, whether you're figuring out the most efficient delivery route or the best expansion strategy. Marcus, Mr. Davidson said, stopping near the reception desk. I have to ask one more time. Are you absolutely certain you wouldn't consider joining us full-time? What you've contributed in 3 months has been extraordinary. Marcus smiled, but his answer was the same as always. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Davidson, but I'm happy with the balance I have now. I get to solve interesting problems with you folks once a month, and I still get to drive around the city helping people with their delivery needs every day. It's the best of both worlds. Mr. Davidson extended his hand for their customary farewell handshake. Well, the offer remains open. And Marcus? Thank you. Today's insight about network positioning instead of individual location optimization, that's going to change the entire trajectory of our company's growth. As Marcus walked back to his delivery van, he reflected on how much his life had changed since that first day, when he'd simply listened to people's problems and offered a suggestion. He was still the same person doing the same job he loved, but now he had an additional outlet for his problem-solving passion. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife asking how the consulting session went. Marcus smiled as he typed back, "Helped them think about expansion differently. Home by 6 for dinner." Some problems, he thought as he started his van, just needed someone willing to look at them from a completely different angle. As more employees gathered in the lobby, word spread quickly about how the crisis had been resolved. Marcus found himself at the center of attention in a way that made him slightly uncomfortable. He preferred helping quietly and moving on, but the significance of what had happened was clearly enormous for everyone involved. "Is it true that you figured out the problem just from listening to conversations?" asked one of the accountants who had been worried about processing payroll. "I noticed some similarities to problems I'd seen before," Marcus replied diplomatically. The real credit goes to Dave and Linda and the technical team for implementing the solution so quickly. But Dave wasn't having any of that modesty. "Don't let him downplay this," Dave said to the growing crowd. "We were completely stuck. 15 engineers, outside consultants, emergency meetings with the software vendor. Nobody could figure it out." Marcus listened for 20 minutes and identified exactly what was wrong. "What I don't understand," said one of the manufacturing supervisors, "is how someone who isn't in IT could spot something that all our specialists missed." Linda answered this thoughtfully. "That's exactly why he could spot it. We were all thinking like IT professionals, looking for complex technical failures. Marcus was thinking like a problem solver, looking for simple logical explanations. Mr. Davidson had been thinking during this conversation, and now he stepped forward with a determined expression. "Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." "Okay," Marcus said, curious about the serious tone. "Would you be willing to come back here occasionally as an informal consultant? Not a job offer, not asking you to change careers, just someone we could call when we're really stuck on a problem." Marcus considered this. What would that involve exactly? Maybe once a month or whenever we hit a wall on something complex. You could look at our problems with fresh eyes, ask the questions that we might not think to ask. We'd pay you consulting fees, of course. Linda and Dave exchanged excited glances. "That's actually brilliant," Linda said. "Having someone completely outside our normal thinking patterns available for tough problems. Like having a professional puzzle solver on call," Dave added. Marcus was intrigued despite himself. "I do enjoy solving problems. And you're clearly gifted at it, Mr. Davidson pressed. Marcus, what you did today wasn't luck. You systematically gathered information, formed a hypothesis, and guided us to the right solution. That's exactly what we need when conventional approaches fail. Sarah spoke up from behind her desk. Plus, Marcus, you already know our systems from delivering here regularly. You understand how the company works. That's a good point, Marcus acknowledged. I do have a sense of how things operate here. Mr. Davidson could see Marcus was genuinely considering the proposal. Here's what I'm thinking. We start small. Maybe you come in for 2 hours once a month. If it works out for everyone, we can adjust from there. No pressure, no long-term commitments. What kind of problems would I be looking at? Marcus asked. Anything we can't solve through normal channels, Mr. Davidson replied. Technical issues, process problems, efficiency challenges. Sometimes an outside perspective can see solutions that are invisible to people too close to the situation. Dave nodded enthusiastically. Today proved that completely. We were so focused on the technical aspects that we never considered the security software angle. And the timing question, Linda added. We never thought to ask why the problem started when they did, rather than immediately after installation. Marcus looked around at the faces surrounding him. Engineers, managers, support staff, all looking at him with respect and genuine appreciation. It was clear that today's events had made a real difference in their lives. You know what? Marcus said finally. Let's try it. Once a month sounds reasonable. The small crowd burst into spontaneous applause, and Mr. Davidson's face broke into a huge grin. Outstanding. Linda, can you work with Marcus to set up a schedule that works with his delivery route? Absolutely, Linda replied. And Marcus, I want to give you my contact information too. If you ever have questions about our systems or want to discuss technical problems, please don't hesitate to call. As the crowd began to disperse back to their normal work routines, Dave lingered behind. Marcus, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Don't you ever feel like you're wasting your talents doing delivery work? I mean, after today, it's obvious you have incredible problem-solving abilities. Marcus smiled thoughtfully. Dave, I help solve problems every day in my delivery job. When someone's expecting an important package and it gets delayed, I figure out how to track it down. When businesses have supply chain issues, I work with them to find solutions. Today was just a bigger version of what I do all the time. But this was worth millions of dollars to the company. And helping Mr. Peterson fix his computer last month was worth everything to him. The scale might be different, but the satisfaction of helping people solve problems is the same. As Marcus wheeled his empty cart toward the exit, Mr. Davidson called out to him. Wait a minute. You can't just walk away after saving our company. What's your name? Your full name? Marcus Williams, he replied, extending his hand for a firm handshake. Marcus Williams, Mr. Davidson repeated, as if committing it to memory. And you work for which delivery company? Express Logistics, Marcus answered. Been with them for 3 years now. Mr. Davidson pulled out his business card and wrote something on the back. I'm James Davidson, CEO of TechFlow Industries. Marcus, I want you to consider this card a standing invitation. If you ever want to transition into a different career, I'd love to have you on our technical team. Marcus looked at the card with surprise. That's very generous, Mr. Davidson, but I don't have a computer science degree or formal training. Neither did Steve Jobs or Bill Gates when they started, Mr. Davidson replied. What you have is something more valuable, the ability to see problems clearly and think logically about solutions. That can't be taught. Linda approached them, overhearing the conversation. He's right, Marcus. I've got 2 engineering degrees and 15 years of experience, but I was so focused on complex solutions that I completely missed the simple explanation. That kind of fresh perspective is incredibly valuable. Dave joined them as well, grinning widely. The system is completely restored. All data intact, all processes running smoothly. Marcus, you literally saved our jobs today. If this had dragged on much longer, there would definitely have been layoffs. I'm just glad everything worked out, Marcus said genuinely. It feels good to help solve a problem. Mr. Davidson wasn't ready to let the matter drop. Marcus, can I ask you something? What made you confident enough to speak up? Most people would have kept walking rather than get involved in a corporate crisis. Marcus thought about the question carefully. I guess I've always believed that knowledge isn't exclusive to certain jobs or titles. If you see a problem you think you can help with, staying silent doesn't help anyone. The worst thing that could have happened is that I would have been wrong. And the best thing? Mr. Davidson prompted. The best thing is exactly what happened. The problem gets solved and people keep their jobs. Sarah had been listening to this exchange while handling the flood of phone calls from relieved clients. During a brief break, she joined the group. Marcus, I have to say, when you first suggested looking at the security software, I thought you were crazy. I've never seen anything like what happened here today. What do you mean? Marcus asked. I mean, watching someone completely outside our industry walk in and solve a problem that stumped our entire technical department. It's like something out of a movie. Mr. Davidson nodded emphatically. Sarah's right. In 25 years of running this company, I've never seen anything quite like this. Marcus, are you sure I can't convince you to at least consider a position here? We could start you in a consulting role, give you training, see where your natural talents take you. Marcus was clearly tempted, but he shook his head. I appreciate the offer more than you know, but I actually enjoy my delivery job. I get to meet different people every day, solve little problems here and there, and I'm home with my family every evening. That's worth a lot to me. Family is important, Mr. Davidson agreed. Tell you what, here's my direct number. He wrote another number on a second business card. If you ever change your mind, or if you just want to talk about interesting problems you've encountered, call me. And I mean that. Just then, Linda came running over with a tablet showing system performance metrics. Everything is running better than it has in weeks, she announced. Not only did we solve the immediate problem, but the security adjustments actually improved overall system efficiency. How is that possible? Dave asked. Linda grinned. Turns out the security software was also causing minor delays in other processes. By fine-tuning the settings instead of just turning features on and off, we optimized the whole system. Mr. Davidson looked at Marcus with renewed amazement. So not only did you solve our crisis, but you accidentally helped us improve our overall performance. Sometimes one good fix leads to other improvements, Marcus said modestly. It's like when you clean one corner of a room. Suddenly you notice ways to improve the whole space. The elevator opened and more employees began emerging, having heard the good news spreading throughout the building. Word had traveled fast that the crisis was over and normal operations were resuming. Marcus explained his theory about the security software while Mr. Davidson listened intently. As he spoke, more engineers gathered around, drawn by the possibility of a solution after hours of frustration. So you're suggesting, Mr. Davidson said slowly, that our $2 million security system is actually preventing our core business system from functioning? Not preventing it from functioning, Marcus clarified. Preventing it from functioning the way it used to. The security software is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Protect your data. It's just being a little too protective. One of the senior engineers, a woman named Linda, stepped forward. That's an interesting theory, but we've checked the security logs multiple times. There's no indication that legitimate processes are being blocked. What if the security software isn't logging those blocks as security events? Marcus asked. What if it's classifying them as routine threat prevention, so they're not showing up in the main security logs? Linda frowned. The logs would still show something, would they? Marcus pressed gently. Or would they just show system optimization events or routine maintenance activities? Dave suddenly snapped his fingers. Wait, Linda. Remember those optimization notices we've been getting? The ones that said the system was automatically improving performance by reducing unnecessary data transfers? Linda's expression changed as understanding dawned. Oh my God. We assumed those were good things. We didn't even think to check what data transfers were being blocked. Mr. Davidson looked between his engineers and Marcus. Are you telling me that the answer might be in logs we didn't think were important? It's possible, Marcus said. Sometimes the most important information is hiding in the least obvious places. Right, Mr. Davidson decided. Linda, Dave, get back upstairs and check every log file, every notification, every automated report from the past 2 weeks. I want to know exactly what this security system has been doing. As the engineers hurried toward the elevators, Mr. Davidson turned back to Marcus. I have to ask, what's your background? Your technical knowledge seems pretty sophisticated for... He paused, looking at Marcus's uniform. For a delivery driver? Marcus finished with a smile. I've always been good with puzzles. Fixing things is kind of a hobby of mine. A hobby? Mr. Davidson repeated, shaking his head in amazement. My 15-person technical team couldn't figure this out, but you spotted it in 20 minutes of casual observation. Sometimes being outside a situation helps, Marcus replied. Your engineers know the system so well that they might be looking past simple explanations for complex ones. Sarah had been watching this entire exchange with fascination. Should I cancel the emergency consultant who's flying in tomorrow? Let's see what the team finds first, Mr. Davidson said. His phone buzzed with a text message and his expression grew tense again. That's our biggest client threatening to terminate their contract if we don't resolve this by tomorrow morning. 20 minutes later, Dave came running back down to the lobby, his face flushed with excitement. We found it, he called out. Marcus was absolutely right. The security software has been quarantining our database sync operations for the past week. Every single transaction from this morning is sitting in a protected folder, completely intact. Mr. Davidson's relief was visible. Can you restore it? We're doing that right now, Dave said breathlessly. But we need to adjust the security settings first, or it'll just get quarantined again. Do whatever you need to do, Mr. Davidson ordered. And Dave? Make sure our friend here gets whatever he wants, coffee, lunch, a job offer, whatever. Marcus laughed. I'm just glad I could help. Linda appeared from the elevator with several other engineers, all looking energized for the first time all day. The restore's working perfectly, she announced. We're already seeing data flow returning to normal. Give us another 30 minutes and everything should be completely back online. Mr. Davidson turned to Marcus with genuine gratitude. I don't know how to thank you. This company was facing a potential disaster, and you solved it with a simple observation. Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones, Marcus said. Your engineers did all the hard work. They just needed to look in a different direction. As the technical team bustled around implementing the fix, Marcus began gathering his delivery equipment. His job here was done, and he had other stops to make before the end of his shift. Sarah looked around nervously, then leaned closer to Marcus. Look, I appreciate you wanting to help, but there's no way Mr. Davidson would let a delivery driver near our servers. He barely trusts his own engineers right now. Marcus understood her position completely. What if you didn't mention that I'm a delivery driver? What if you just said someone thinks they might have an idea about the problem? That's not exactly honest, Sarah said, though Marcus could see she was considering it. It's not dishonest either, Marcus replied. I do think I have an idea. The delivery part isn't relevant to solving computer problems. Before Sarah could respond, one of the engineers emerged from the conference room, looking completely exhausted. Marcus recognized him as someone who'd received packages from him before, a young man named Dave who always seemed friendly and approachable. Any luck? Sarah called out to Dave. Dave shook his head and slumped against the reception desk. We're completely out of ideas. The security consultant is flying in tomorrow morning, but Mr. Davidson wants solutions now. We've tried everything. Rolling back updates, checking hardware connections, running diagnostic after diagnostic. The system keeps crashing every time we try to sync the databases. Marcus seized the moment. Excuse me, Dave, right? I couldn't help but overhear. When you say the system crashes during database syncing, are you getting any specific error messages? Dave looked puzzled but answered, usually something about unauthorized access attempts or security protocols being violated. But that doesn't make sense because we're using legitimate admin credentials. And this started happening after the new security software was installed? Now Dave's attention was fully focused. How did you know about the security software? And who are you exactly? Sarah jumped in quickly. This is Marcus. He thinks he might have some insight into your problem. Any insight would be welcome at this point, Dave said desperately. We're grasping at straws here. Marcus took a deep breath. I think your new security software might be treating the database synchronization as a potential cyber attack. Sometimes these military-grade systems are programmed to be extremely suspicious of any process that moves large amounts of data between different parts of a network, even when it's supposed to happen. Dave's eyes widened. That actually makes some sense. We notice the crashes happen specifically when the system tries to move transaction records from the temporary holding area to the main database. But the security team assured us they configured everything properly. The configuration might be technically correct, but the software could still be interpreting legitimate operations as suspicious, Marcus explained. Think about it. If you were designing a system to stop data theft, you'd want it to flag any process that's rapidly accessing and moving large amounts of sensitive information, right? Dave nodded slowly. And our synchronization process does exactly that. It moves thousands of transaction records in batches. Exactly. The security software sees this pattern and thinks someone is trying to steal your entire database. But why didn't this happen immediately when we installed the security suite? Dave asked. Marcus had wondered about this too. Probably because the software has a learning period. For the first week or two, it observes normal patterns without interfering much. Then it starts getting more aggressive about blocking anything that looks suspicious. Dave was already pulling out his phone. I need to tell the team about this immediately. If you're right, we might be able to fix this by adjusting the security whitelist. Wait, Marcus said. Before you go, there's something else you should check. The security software might have quarantined some of the data it thought was being stolen. If that's the case, you'll need to restore those files before the system will work properly again. Dave stared at Marcus with a mixture of amazement and hope. How do you know all this? Are you a consultant or something? Marcus smiled. Something like that. I've just seen similar problems before. Dave! Mr. Davidson's voice boomed from across the lobby. The CEO was striding toward them with determination. Please tell me you have some good news. Dave straightened up. Actually, sir, I think we might have a breakthrough. This gentleman here has identified what could be the root cause of our problem. Mr. Davidson looked at Marcus for the first time, taking in his delivery uniform and casual appearance. I'm sorry, who are you exactly? Someone who thinks he can help, Marcus replied confidently, meeting the CEO's gaze without flinching. Mr. Davidson's expression was skeptical, but the desperation of the situation was clear in his voice. At this point, I'm willing to listen to anyone. What's your theory? Back in the lobby, Marcus couldn't resist lingering a bit longer than usual. He told himself he was just being thorough with his paperwork, but really, he was listening to the conversations happening around him. The crisis had spilled out of the conference rooms and into the common areas as employees gathered to discuss the situation. They've tried rebooting everything 3 times, he heard one technician say to another. Even brought in specialists from the software company, but they're stumped too. What about the backup systems? The other replied. That's the crazy part. The backups work fine, but when they try to sync with the main database, everything crashes again. It's like there's something blocking the connection, but they can't find what it is. Marcus approached Sarah's desk to get his final signatures. She looked even more frazzled than when he'd arrived, fielding phone calls from increasingly angry clients while trying to coordinate with the technical team upstairs. Any progress? Marcus asked gently. Sarah covered the phone's mouthpiece and whispered, None. If anything, it's getting worse. They just told me they might have to shut down operations for the rest of the week, while they rebuild the entire system from scratch. Do you know what that means? Thousands of orders delayed, millions in lost revenue, and probably half the staff laid off if this drags on. After hanging up, Sarah continued, The worst part is, this system was supposed to be foolproof. The company spent $2 million upgrading it last year. Now it's acting like it's held together with duct tape and prayers. Marcus finished his paperwork but found himself reluctant to leave. Something about the technical descriptions reminded him of a problem he'd solved just last month. His neighbor, an elderly man named Mr. Peterson, had been struggling with his home computer setup for weeks. Multiple technicians had looked at it, but the issue persisted. His computer could connect to the internet just fine, but certain applications wouldn't sync with online services. The solution had turned out to be surprisingly simple. Mr. Peterson had installed a new security program that was overly aggressive in blocking connections. The program wasn't obvious because it ran in the background and it only interfered with specific types of data transfers. Once Marcus identified and adjusted the security settings, everything worked perfectly. Sarah, Marcus said carefully, I know this might sound strange, but could I ask you something about the technical problem? She looked up surprised but not dismissive. Over the months of regular deliveries, Marcus had always been professional and thoughtful in their brief interactions. Sure, though, I'm not really technical myself. I just relay what the engineers tell me. When did they last update their security software or add new protective measures? Sarah's eyebrows rose. That's an oddly specific question. Actually, funny you should ask. They installed a new cybersecurity suite about 2 weeks ago. Some high-end military-grade protection system. Cost a fortune. But given all the cyber attacks companies face these days, management thought it was necessary. Marcus felt a familiar tingle of recognition, the same feeling he got when he was close to solving a puzzle. And the problem started this morning. Well, there were some minor glitches last week, but nothing serious. Today was the first major crash. Sarah paused, studying Marcus's face. Why do you ask? You seem to know something about this stuff. I fix computers in my spare time, Marcus said modestly. Help out friends and neighbors mostly. I've seen similar problems before where security software gets too protective and blocks legitimate connections. Just then, the elevator opened and the CEO stepped out, his face red with frustration. He was talking rapidly into his phone while several engineers trailed behind him, looking defeated. I don't care what it costs, the CEO was saying. Fly in whoever you need to fly in. Get the best people money can buy. This company cannot afford to stay offline another day. As the group passed by, Marcus caught fragments of their technical discussion. They were talking about the same symptoms he'd suspected, certain processes working fine in isolation but failing when they tried to communicate with other parts of the system. Sarah watched the group disappear into another conference room. That's Mr. Davidson, our CEO. He's normally pretty calm, but this situation has him completely stressed out. His reputation is on the line, not to mention the company's future. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Sarah, I know this is going to sound crazy, but would it be possible for me to take a quick look at the system? I think I might know what's wrong. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. You want to look at our multi-million-dollar computer system? Marcus, no offense, but you're a delivery driver. I understand how it sounds, Marcus replied calmly. But sometimes fresh eyes can spot things that experts miss. What's the worst that could happen? The system is already broken. Marcus Williams adjusted his delivery cap as he pulled his van into the parking lot of TechFlow Industries. The massive glass building gleamed in the afternoon sun, its sleek design screaming corporate success. He checked his delivery app one more time. 15 packages for various departments, mostly computer parts and technical equipment. Just another routine stop on what had been a particularly busy Tuesday. Walking through the pristine lobby with his cart of packages, Marcus couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. Employees hurried past with worried expressions, and he could hear fragments of heated conversations about deadlines and problems. The receptionist, a young woman with stress written across her face, barely looked up as she signed for the deliveries. Rough day? Marcus asked with his usual friendly smile, the one that had made him a favorite among his regular customers over the past 3 years of delivery work. The receptionist, Sarah, glanced up and sighed. You could say that. Our main server system has been down for 6 hours now. We've got 15 engineers working around the clock, but nothing's working. The CEO is losing his mind because we're hemorrhaging money every minute this thing stays offline. Marcus nodded sympathetically as he organized the packages by department. That sounds terrible. Technology can be tricky sometimes. Tell me about it, Sarah continued, grateful for someone willing to listen. This system controls everything. Our manufacturing line, inventory, customer orders, payroll. When it goes down, the entire company basically stops functioning. We've got clients calling every 5 minutes demanding updates on their orders. As Marcus wheeled his cart toward the elevator, he passed the main conference room where he could see through the glass walls. A group of exhausted-looking engineers sat around a large table covered with laptops, tablets, and scattered papers. Their sleeves were rolled up, ties loosened, and coffee cups littered the surface. At the head of the table stood a tall man in an expensive suit, gesticulating wildly as he spoke on his phone. Yes? I understand the contract penalties, the man was saying loudly enough for Marcus to hear through the slightly open door. But you need to understand that we're doing everything humanly possible to fix this system. We've got our best people on it. Marcus recognized the desperation in the man's voice. He'd heard similar tones from small business owners when their delivery schedules got messed up, and they were facing angry customers. The pressure of responsibility, the weight of other people's expectations, the fear of failure, it all sounded the same whether you were running a Fortune 500 company or a corner store. The elevator dinged softly as it arrived, and Marcus stepped inside with his cart. As the doors began to close, he caught one more glimpse of the conference room. One of the engineers was holding his head in his hands while another was frantically typing on a laptop. The CEO had ended his phone call and was now pacing back and forth, checking his watch repeatedly. During his deliveries to the upper floors, Marcus encountered more signs of the crisis. Department heads were gathered in hushed conversations, support staff looked worried about their jobs, and several employees were working frantically on backup procedures using paper and pen. The usual busy hum of a productive office had been replaced by an undercurrent of anxiety and frustration. "How long has this been going on?" Marcus asked a friendly manager he'd gotten to know over his regular deliveries. "Since 8 this morning," the manager replied, shaking his head. "Started as what they thought was a minor glitch, but every fix they try just makes it worse somehow. The system keeps rejecting their solutions. It's like it has a mind of its own." Marcus finished his deliveries efficiently, but something about the situation nagged at him as he made his way back to the lobby. He'd always been good with puzzles and problem-solving, even as a kid. His grandmother used to say he could fix anything that was broken, from toys to radios to her old television that everyone else had given up on. As he waited for the elevator, Marcus found himself thinking about the technical conversations he'd overheard during his deliveries. The engineers kept mentioning something about database connections and server synchronization issues. While he'd never worked in corporate IT, Marcus had spent countless hours fixing computers for friends and family, and he'd picked up quite a bit about how different systems talk to each other. The elevator arrived, and as Marcus rode down to the ground floor, he couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, he might have an idea about what was wrong.